Hello, P6 students. Welcome to our today's radio learning program for science, produced by Rwanda Education Board with the support of UNICEF Rwanda. I am Teacher Gerard. Good. Students, as we always do, before the lesson begins, I would like you to get your pen and notebook for writing notes, doing exercises, and homework. Dear parents, I would like you to be close to the students and follow up what they are doing and support them where necessary. Thank you. Wonderful students. Let us listen to this message before we start.
Nitwitaye iwacu Bruce Melody muraho neza mahoro ni Bruce Melody nkuko nari maze kubivuga. Hanyuma uyu munsi bafitiye ubutumwa bumeze butya. Niba warabanye n'umuntu ufite ibimenyetso by'indwara ya coronavirus cyangwa se ukabuzi ko hari uwuzi afite ibyo bimenyetso, ukwiriye kubimenyesha inzego z'ubuzima zikwegereye cyangwa ugahamagara kuri nimero 114 kugira ngo muhabwe ubutabazi. Ubu butumwa burabareba, mugume mu rugo, mwoge intoki, amagara araseseka ntayo. Yuhu!
A powerful message for us. So powerful. I hope you have gotten it right and able to behave accordingly. Great. Let us stand up to tune our mind and all selves to the lesson by singing a short and single song. I am going to sing the song 2 times as you listen. Then I will call you to join me and we sing for the 3rd time. This is the short song. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus now. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus now. Students, it is your turn to join me. Let us sing. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus. Come away to Jesus now. Wonderful, wonderful. Can you clap for yourselves? Thank you. Now, students, can we remember what we learned about last time? Can we remember what we learned about last time? Perfect. In our last lesson, we learned about definition and types of plant reproduction. Great. Can we name the 2 types of reproduction in plants? Can we name the 2 types of reproduction in plants? Absolutely right. The 2 types of reproduction in plants that we learned are sexual and asexual reproduction. Sexual and asexual reproduction. The topic of our lesson today, students, is process of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Remember, the other one that we saw was just the parts which will be leading to the reproduction. Now, write this one down. Process of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Sexual, not asexual. Sexual reproduction. Our lesson objective will be, we will be able to list various agents of pollination. We will be able to list various agents of pollination. Number 2, we will explain how the agents cause pollination to occur. We will explain how the agents cause pollination to occur. Objective number 3, we will investigate ways in which plants reproduce. We will investigate ways in which plants reproduce. Are we together, friends? Good. We will start with sexual reproduction. We are going to start with sexual reproduction. Now, my friends, sexual reproduction in flowering plants involves the following processes: pollination, fertilization, seed dispersal, and seed germination. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants involves pollination, fertilization, seed dispersal, and seed germination. Now, what is pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anthers to the stigma of a flower. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anthers to the stigma of a flower. My friend, when pollination takes place in the same plant, because a plant has different flowers, when it takes place in the same plant, pollen grains come from one flower to another flower in the same plant. That one is called self-pollination. What is it called? Wonderful. Self-pollination. Then, when it happens in different flowers or in different plants now, remember, the plants must be of the same kind. The plants must be of the same kind. You cannot get pollen grains from cassava pollinating maize. If it is maize, it is maize. When the flowers from a different cassava pollinates another cassava, then that one is called cross-pollination. So, what is cross-pollination? Cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower on a different plant, but of the same type. Are we together? Good. Let us now see the agents of pollination. What are these things that are causing pollination? They are the agents. This refers to things that help to transfer pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower. They include insects. For example, the bees and butterflies. The insects like bees and butterflies. They also include birds. Example, the sunbird. They also include wind and water. These are agents. Wind is an agent of pollination. Water is an agent of pollination. Birds are agents of pollination, and insects are agents of pollination. When water flows down the stream, it will carry pollen grains with it. We will see about that. They can even transfer some fruits, like the coconut. The coconut can be swimming or floating on water. Then it goes and gets left somewhere. It will grow there as a new plant. Great.
Come along and play with us.
Welcome back to our lesson. After pollination, now we are going to see fertilization. From pollination, we go to fertilization. Now, I want you to pay attention and see this process of fertilization in flowering plants. Fertilization in itself is the union of pollen grains and the ovules. Fertilization is the union of pollen grains and the ovules. Once they meet, they will form a zygote. But before that, let us see. Pollen grains move from the anthers. They are transferred to the stigma. Once the pollen grains reach the stigma, there are two things that happen. There is a liquid which is produced. This liquid is called pollen sap. Pollen sap. S-A-P. Sap. The pollen sap, together with the pollen grains, will make a hole through the style. This hole is also called pollen tube. The pollen tube is going to lead the pollen grains into the ovary and through a hole which is called the micropyle. I spell micropyle. M-I-C-R-O-P-I-L-E. Micropyle. Once it has entered the ovule in the ovary through the micropyle, the union becomes a zygote, and the zygote in this case is a seed. Now a seed is already formed because of fertilization. After fertilization, the ovules become the seed. The ovary becomes the fruit. Good. Now, this fruit is formed. In the fruit, we have the seeds. Now, what is next? What is next is, how are these seeds going to be dispersed? How are we going to have seeds moving from the host plant to other areas? That is what is now important. And so, our next point that we are going to see is seed dispersal, meaning how do seeds move from the host plant to other areas? Good. Seed dispersal is the scattering away of seeds in order to germinate and grow into new plants. If they just remain here in the host plant, we cannot have other seeds growing and other plants growing elsewhere. So they must be dispersed. Therefore, what are the agents of seed dispersal? 1. Self-dispersal. My friends, you have seen a bean plant. A bean plant, when they are ready and dry for harvest, and you are there in the garden, you will just hear a sound, pa! And out of that, the seeds will run, will splatter. That one is called explosion. Self-explosion. Number 2, Wind. Wind blows away some of the seeds, especially the seeds that are light. Especially the seeds that are light. Now, the seeds that are light can be carried in the wind. When they are carried in the wind, they will settle elsewhere. That is a form of seed dispersal. Animals. The animals can also disperse the seeds. Like in blackjack, they can stick on the animals. Lastly, water. As I had said, some seeds can be floating on water. Good.
Come along and play with us.
Now, children, after this wonderful lesson, I would like you to go and get some few seeds from the kitchen. Or if your parents or guardian can support you to find some from the plants in the compound. Try to suggest and write down how they are dispersed. Try to suggest and write down how they are dispersed or how they can move from one place to another. Wonderful! That marks the end of our lesson today. Until we meet again in our next lesson, bye-bye.